What the fuck happened to Barry? This used to be a great show. Season 1 and 2 were fantastic. They were interesting and different. You were never sure what was going to happen next, and Barry was a likeable yet unlikely protagonist. It was quirky and funny and full of great characters and odd predicaments that left you feeling bemused at the bizarre events and even heart in your throat worried about how Barry was going to get through things alive. It was, in short, just a great little series that didn't take itself too seriously and appeared to be having a lot of fun with themes that were both unsettling and violent. And I'm not even talking about Barry being a hitman who works for various mobs. I'm talking about Sally, a woman so vile and disturbingly selfish that she manages to make She-Hulk look like a nun. She is so very self-interested and awful that I would list her up there with that girl that's playing Snow White in the live-action remake in a rogues gallery of women who have measurably made the world a worse place to live. But before I get started, please consider subscribing as that would really help me out. And if you like this content, give it a like. Okay, on with the vid. As I said, Season 1 and 2 were great. The writing was pretty good. The events were fun. They managed to make a contract-killing hitman into one of the most likeable and fun characters on TV. Barry is an unassuming guy, the sort of person you see delivering the mail, the sort of person you would see working in a petrol station, the sort of person that serves you at McDonald's, the sort of person that you would pass every day for 10 years on your walk to work and never even glance at them. He is plain and uninteresting. He has one of those faces that simply doesn't stick in your mind, which makes him perfect for the role of hitman, because nobody is going to remember his face. Even if they looked right at him from 5 feet away, they would have a hard time picking him out of a lineup later in that same day. But he is an exceptionally talented killer who seems to be able to handle almost any situation, regardless of the odds against him, which we see many times during the show, and his lack of charisma is just a plus. The series starts with Barry arriving in Los Angeles on a job organised by his handler Fuchs, a man who cares only for himself and who uses Barry in a very callous way. Considering Fuchs is Barry's uncle and has known him since he was a child, you would have thought they would be more supportive of Barry. But Fuchs is a very complicated man and has a very strange character arc within this story that finally sees him learn his lesson and turn over a new leaf. Barry's job is to kill a man who is having an affair with a Chechen mob boss's wife. At this point, we meet NoHo Hank, who is a high-ranking Chechen mobster, though he would have made a better air steward than criminals, since he is very thoughtful and very much a people-pleaser. He has no talent for crime, and this in fact makes him a very endearing character that really steals every moment he is on screen. Barry follows his target to a drama class where he ends up being talked into taking part and discover that he has a talent for acting. He meets Sally Reed, who he becomes enamored with, and after confessing to the acting coach that he is a hitman, he decides that he wants to change his life by taking up acting and going straight. Gene Cousineau, the acting coach, played by the Fonz,
Observe. Whoa.
is self-obsessed, self-glorifying, and rarely thinks of others. But he is a talented actor and a good teacher that manages to create almost a cult of personality around himself, which makes his students very loyal and invested. He sees that Barry has talent, and he thinks that Barry was just simply playing a part when he told him about him being a hitman. He takes Barry under his wing to try and help him move on with his life. Barry becomes obsessed with Cousineau and treats him like something of a father figure, which leads to some very interesting and troubling events, such as the murder of Cousineau's policewoman girlfriend, which becomes a defining moment of the series and fundamental to almost all of the events that follow. From this point, much madness and hilarity ensues, and I can't emphasize how much fun this program was. Season 1 and 2 were sublime. But then we had Season 3. I seem to have suffered some form of mental block. For the life of me, I just couldn't remember it. I don't know if I was visited by the Men in Black and neuralized, or if I fell over and bumped my head and suffered a very subjective amnesia, or if it was just that Season 3 just really wasn't that good. I mean, it wasn't horrible, but it didn't quite feel like the same story that we had been watching for 2 seasons. The writing wasn't as good, the story itself became stilted and dull, and we spent far far too much time with Sally. Now, I think I mentioned that Sally is possibly the most annoying narcissistic person on the planet, and that Chechen mob bosses and Bolivian gangsters are so much nicer, and didn't make me want to throw the TV out of the window. But I would just like to clarify that I have no idea if Sally was supposed to be in any way a sympathetic character. I mean, she was in an abusive marriage, and her mother was horrible. But if she really was supposed to be in any way relatable, they failed miserably. The casting of this series was just perfect. Whoever was responsible for it deserves an Oscar, or some other award that still has class and represents merit. The actress Sarah Goldberg is absolutely outstanding. She really managed to bring the character of Sally Reed to life. So much so that if I was her, I would never allow my husband to watch this program, because it might permanently damage his perception of her. Sally is just one of Hollywood's great villains. She isn't supposed to be, but there it is. I would probably rank her up there with Darth Maul, Freddy Krueger, and that guy with the nails in his head from Hellraiser. She really is just that awful. Anthony Carrigan couldn't have been better if he was chosen by God for the role of NoHo Hank. Watching him try his best to be a villain, while also being one of the most helpful and sweetest guys on the planet, was hilarious. Even the actor playing Fuchs, Stephen Root, was just brilliant. He had a lot of plot twists and facets to handle, primary among them being able to portray someone who is just so high-strung and manipulative that he even tries to kill, or have killed, the only person he actually seems to love. And he really does love Barry, but he can't stand the idea that Barry just doesn't need him. Henry Winkler as Gene Cousineau, the acting coach, was again a masterstroke of casting. He embodies the role so well that he blends seamlessly with the character. I almost forgot that he's the Fonz. Almost. And Bill Hader as Barry was great. His portrayal of a PTSD-suffering, disillusioned hitman who discovers that there is more to life than the next job, and who tries so hard in his own way to escape that life, yet at almost every turn drags the people he loves closer to his world than he gets to theirs, is almost heartbreaking at times. And then season 4 happened. And it was such a letdown. Obviously, when it's the last season, you want to tie up all the loose ends, and not have the fans chewing over what may or may not have happened. It starts out okay, but it just continues in the vein of season 3, which was massively lacking in humour and concentrated solely on drama. And when you extract all the aspects that made a series fun, it changes the programme. It used to be a dark comedy drama, but became a dark drama. Even NoHo Hank, a bastion of silliness, ends up losing all of his humour.
That's just super fucked up.
And each character slowly destroys what made them great. Barry is no longer a talented assassin. He in fact no longer shows any talent in that area, and he has no funny side anymore. He is played essentially straight, and for a character whose traits were being amusing and being good at killing, it makes him seem hollow and pointless. Sally is herself, and that is enough. The mobsters become irrelevant and forgotten. Gene Cousineau remains himself, but his character is necessary rather than endearing. Even Fuchs becomes twisted by the end, but in his case he actually manages to embody the hard-boiled criminal he always imagined himself to be. And while he also is still himself, it is a version of him that is again humorless and sad. And then there is the time jump. Halfway through the season, we jump 8 years into the future, and it is just strange and unnecessary. It does nothing to enhance the plot, and is in fact more of a hindrance to the story than anything. It smacks of a need to just get things out of the way and done. It is at most just a gimmick, because all of the events that occur could just as easily have taken place back in the past. The only thing it added was giving Barry a son, which really added nothing to the narrative, unless they intend for Barry's son to come under the influence of Fuchs and take Barry's place. And then, the piece de resistance. They kill Barry. Yes, Barry dies, killed by Gene, who goes to prison for the crimes that Barry committed, and Sally takes over from Gene as acting coach. NoHo Hank dies a sad, pathetic death after having had the love of his life, Christabel, killed. It is all very desolate, which is probably what Bill Hader was going for, to show that if you lead a life of crime and murder, then you end your life in the way you lived. I don't know, but I found it all just depressing and miserable. Maybe if they had killed Sally off, there would have been some kind of a silver lining, but they didn't, so misery rules supreme. The promise of those first 2 seasons was just that, a promise, and a promise broken. I will probably never watch Barry again, But if I do, I will certainly be stopping at season 2. There is simply no reason to go further. I would rather Barry and everyone else had hope for the future, rather than an ignominious end. This has been Movie Suck, wondering just how it could have all gone so wrong. Signing out, leave a like, share, subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the flip side.